What it do, baby? Welcome back to Balls Deep. It's your boys Devin and Jovan. On the last episode, we talked about the NCAA allowing student athletes to get paid in episodes 5 through 8 of the Last Dance Michael Jordan Bulls documentary. On this episode, we'll be welcoming our friend Nico, who is an MMA connoisseur, to the show to talk about the long-awaited UFC 249.
It's time!
And now we're going to go on to the UFC. We got our first guest on this podcast. It's going to be my good friend and Devin's good friend, Nico. Nico, introduce yourself. Tell our viewers a little bit about yourself and your knowledge for sports or your passion for sports. What sports do you like? And
Yeah. Well, pretty much my main sports are mixed martial arts and soccer, but I know a lot about everything, but just MMA and soccer are pretty much what I only watch, unless football season's on, and or the finals of the NBA, of course, or the Lakers. But I also train Muay Thai. Soon I'm gonna start training Jiu-Jitsu, and hopefully I'll become a amateur MMA fighter soon. So yeah, that's why I'm here.
nice.
That's great. That's great. How does it feel to be our first guest on the podcast?
It feels great. Good timing, I mean, with all this happening and the UFC being the first sport coming back, the first major sport coming back, I it timed perfectly. So yeah.
Well, we're happy to have you on the podcast.
Sir.
Yeah, I'm happy to.
Alrighty. We're gonna jump right into this. We're gonna really just kind of dive into the main card mostly. We're gonna talk a little bit about how we thought the fighters looked, and we're gonna talk about what we see happening with certain divisions and certain big names. So let's start off with Greg Hardy versus Jorgen De Castro. What were your initial thoughts, Devin?
Me? Let's have Nico start. He's our guest.
Alrighty.
Well, I mean, it was a good fight to start the main card. To be honest, I was expecting a lot more action, but De Castro hurt himself pretty early, so it was a pretty, you could tell they're both scared to engage. They both knew they had power. Jorgen De Castro's last fight, his knockout was insane, so I'm sure Hardy knew about that, and he didn't take too many chances either. His leg was hurting, like early, so it was a good fight to start. Hardy is a big name, so it's always fun to watch him. He's super athletic for heavyweight, so it was definitely different because the heavyweight fight we had before, it was kind of sloppy, and it was just a good way to show the heavyweights are not that sloppy all the time.
Yeah, for sure. I thought De Castro definitely looked like the better fighter, more technical. He was keeping Hardy at bay. He definitely was kind of slow after he seemed like he hurt his foot, but you could tell he definitely respected the power of Greg Hardy as well. Greg Hardy's got 5 KOs out of his 7 wins, so you could see that on De Castro while he's fighting. But also, I feel like that's kind of what slowed the fight down a little bit and kind of kept the fighters at bay was the injury and the knockout power they knew each other had.
Going into the fight, I was expecting a lot more. Honestly, I know both had knockout power, so I'm pretty sure. So I was expecting a knockout of some sort to happen, or at least a few knockdowns. But to be honest, both Hardy and De Castro didn't impress me at all during this fight. De Castro dominated Hardy in the first round with his leg kicks. You could honestly just tell by how red and
Yes.
Hardy's left leg was. However, he was pretty much idle for the remainder of the fight, and Hardy honestly just won just by his activity alone. But I honestly wish we were able to watch this fight with a crowd, just because I know Hardy mentioned in his post-fight interview with Joe Rogan that it was benefited him that there was no crowd because he was able to hear DC on the announce table telling him how to counter what De Castro was doing, and he was able to make the mid-fight adjustments that no one really expected from him. And I honestly well, like one would ask or one would wonder if he would be able to make those adjustments if there was a crowd and he wasn't able to hear the announcers.
That seemed like something that a lot of fighters were given credit to is the fact that there was no crowd. They were able to hear a lot of what was going on. Not only with their coaches being able to hear their coaches a lot clearer, but being able to hear certain things that DC were saying and Joe Rogan were saying. So that seemed like it had a big impact in general on the night as a whole for the UFC.
Yes. I mean, I understand that, but at the end of the day, I kind of like watching them with no fans because it's just
I
it's so
agree.
much. I don't know. It's just I can concentrate on the fight and just the fight. It's. But I mean, I understand sometimes, but if you're fighting in a sparring in a gym or just sparring somebody, just you could hear the other people sometimes and I mean it's just gonna be there, and I mean they're gonna have to get used to it. And but I agree. I mean the commentators they're very knowledgeable, so I guess that did help some fighters. But at the end of the day, you have to you just have to fight. And I mean if you could hear, I mean obviously if you hear something they're gonna they're beneficial, they're gonna do it. So I mean I think you just gotta get used to it because I think it's gonna be a while until we have fans back. So
Yeah, I agree. I mean, going into the fight, I was pretty surprised to see Pettis Cerrone on the prelims, and I was after this fight, I kind of think that more it was more worthy to be on the main card in a sense. But this just the Hardy De Castro fight honestly was just the start of a great card. It was honestly the worst card. We were the worst fight on the main card because it just got better and better as the pay per view went on.
Yeah, to touch on a little bit what Nico said, I 100% agree. Um, you're the commentary and hearing that, I mean, it does have an effect, but at the end of the day, I think it's great being able to focus on the fight, not getting any persuasion from the crowd. Not only that, but it puts more pressure on the judges to get things right. The
Yeah,
judges aren't hearing the crowd's oohs and ahs and cheers. So they're kind of judging the fight based off what they're seeing and hearing and what their own, what they're seeing and hearing, other than just, oh, this guy had a kick that sounded like it hurt, but was really blocked, and
yeah.
so it was kind of good to see that, and uh, maybe give the judges a little bit of a easier night. Um,
yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
I would definitely agree. Um, it was honestly cool to kind of get an inside look on the fighters talking to each other and maybe talking shit to one another as well. I mean, there wasn't really much shit talking going on this on this pay per view just because a lot of the fighters had mutual respect for one another, but just getting that inside look into the fights was very interesting.
100%.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
so Nico, if you had to say, where do you think things go and move on for these heavyweights and
Hmm.
Greg Hardy and Jorgen De Castro? What do you think is going to happen with that?
Well, so I think both of them deserve another big opponent next. Especially, I mean, Greg Hardy. He's shown that he's improving every fight. So I mean, his last fight he was able to go to a decision against a top 10 guy. So I think top 15 guy has to be definitely, maybe not top 10 but top 15 guy definitely for Jeff Hardy, for Greg Hardy, sorry. And then De Castro definitely. I think he also should get a big name just because we all know what he's capable of, and we know he was injured, and just another big name, maybe not ranked, but somebody that is gonna put him in the rankings or close to that. But Greg Hardy for sure, a top 15 guy. I mean, he's showing that he's ready to step up to the next level.
For me, I would agree. Um, partially with you. I mean, I do think I don't know. I don't have a particular opponent in mind for either of these guys.
Yeah.
But being that they both didn't really impress me at all, I would say maybe someone another like another unranked fighter. But one of obviously the better unranked fighters, or maybe one of the lower tier fighters within the rankings. So maybe top 15, but on the lower end of things.
Yeah.
Just to maybe Greg Hardy, I think, is more due for a ranked fighter opponent just because he won the fight, but I wouldn't be surprised if DeCastro got one as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I think I was looking a little bit at the rankings. Like Nico said, Hardy, he went to a decision with Volkov, who I believe is ranked number 7. I'm not 100% sure. Those rankings are probably going to move because that
He is.
just happened. Okay. Um, but I was thinking, aside from the fact that I think this guy was actually on this card, he kind of looked a little sluggish, and probably a little bit of a shell of himself. But I think a good opponent, a good test for a guy like Greg Hardy, would be Verdun at 15. I think might be a good one. Um, Obviously, I think Greg Hardy's a lot better athletic shape than he is, and like I said, Verdun looked a little sluggish
Oof.
on his fight in the card. But from a technical standpoint, I think it'd be a very good test for him. Greg Hardy relies a lot on his athletic ability in terms of fighting, so he'd definitely have to work on that technical ability if he were to go against a guy like Verdun, regardless of age and shape, like you
Especially
said,
on the ground.
100%. So I
Verdum
think
is
I think that'd be a perfect test for him, in my opinion.
yeah.
I
I mean,
can't disagree with you.
Verdum looked really out of
Yeah,
shape. I mean,
yeah,
and I know they're heavyweights, but the way he looked is just it didn't look like him, you know. And I mean, if he gets if he gets all his stuff together, I think that'll be a good test. I mean that's a big test, especially if the fight ends up on the ground. But yeah, I mean, why not? I
100%.
mean, if he
It's
beats
a
Verdum,
Yeah,
he shows that he's ready to make the step up, you know.
and I believe Verdum would be ranked at about 15. So like you
Mhm.
said, I mean, it'd definitely be a tough test on the ground, but if you could beat a guy like Verdum at 15, I
Yeah,
mean, it definitely shows that you have a lot of top 15 potential. So
yeah.
now to go from that, let's talk a little bit about Jeremy Stevens versus Calvin Kattar at featherweight. Uh, those are two really good fighters. Jeremy Stevens ended up taking the win with a KO TKO in round 2. That fight could have really gone any way, but Calvin Kattar is just a beast. What do you think about it, Nico? I know you love Kattar.
Yeah, I mean that kid, man. I've been talking about him for a while now, and he's a monster, man. When he beat Shane Burgos, I mean Shane Burgos was already a big a bigger name, and I mean it was a great fight, but he dominated the whole time. The knuckle was crazy. I've been talking about him. He fought with Sabit, and Sabit's a monster, and he's still the third round. He took it, man, and who knows what would have happened. And I mean, I knew I told you I've been talking about this kid for a while, man,
Mhm.
and that knockout was and he wasn't looking he wasn't looking amazing this fight. You could see he had those hands, but he didn't do much, But bro, that knockout was just insane, man. He caught him straight in the mouth with the elbow, bro. It was it was one of the nastiest elbow KOs I've seen like in MMA, bro. This kid's amazing, man.
I mean, I didn't really know much about Cater going into this fight, but he sure definitely made a mark, um, in my memory at least, just because this fight itself was just in 2 words, it was brutal and it was gruesome. Just Cater was just had an impressive win. He dominated Stevens, I'd say the entirety of the fight, and winning via TKO against an opponent known for his durability. It kind of just was super impressive, I
Yeah.
guess, and they should definitely move him up in the ranks. Um, but those two elbows that he landed at the end of the fight were crazy. Like the first one that he hit him with in the jaw to drop him, and then the next one that he immediately followed up with to his forehead that sliced him open, and Stevens immediately started gushing blood. Uh, that was I kind of felt for Stevens just because it was kind of scary.
Yeah, I thought that fight was really good. Like Nico said, I've been hearing him talk about Cater for a little while. He kind of just got on my radar, but the kid's really impressive. He went to a decision with Zabit, who's a monster, and who might contend for a title probably very soon. So,
Hmm.
just based off that alone, I was very impressed by Cater when I saw that Zabit fight, and then seeing him KO Stevens, who's also a really good fighter, ranked number 7 coming into this fight. He looked really great. there's
Yeah.
nothing bad I think I could have said about him that night. He did what he had to do, and he proved that he belongs in that top five of that division.
Yeah, I mean that division right now it's loaded with people, so
Loaded.
it's really
Loaded.
that top 10 is gonna be insane, man. Like, and the way he looked this fight, I mean, he kind of made Steven kind of get out of the mix. You know, he was like, "Bye, you know, you're not at that level yet." You know,
Yeah, yeah.
and I mean, yeah, what he's doing, man. His boxing is amazing, and bro, he's from New England, so you know, we gotta support him. I gotta support him, so you know, that kid's good, man. He's gonna be good.
Fibo, so what do you see as a near like, or what do you see next for these fighters moving forward?
Um, in terms of Cater, like I was saying, he just lost to Zabit by decision. One of only two of his losses in the UFC. I'd love to see him against maybe like a Frankie Edgar. Nico just told me recently that he actually moved weight classes, but I think, uh, granted they're the same weight, that'd be a good fight for him. Frankie Edgar, I see as more of like a gatekeeper in this division at this point. So that might be a good test. Or also Yair Rodriguez, like Nico had mentioned, who just went the distance with Stevens. So I think that'd be a good test. You know, a guy who went the distance with the guy who just got knocked out by Cater. It'd be a good little matchup. And maybe something for a little bit more excitement. The Korean Zombie, that would be another one I would put up there. I'd love to see any one of those fights. I think the biggest test would be the Korean Zombie, and I mean, based on who would win that fight, I think you could say those guys would probably contend for a title anytime after that fight. So
How about you, Nico?
I mean, Stevens, I've never been a huge Stevens fan just because he doesn't win that much. I think if I'm not wrong, I'm pretty sure he's 16 and 16 in the UFC, which is kind of crazy to me. I mean, we know why he's in the UFC is because he's a super exciting fighter, and I appreciate that from him. But he's not elite. You know, he's not gonna contend for a title anymore. He's not getting younger, so I see him maybe fighting a guy that gets a loss out of the top 10, maybe like a top 5 guy that loses, maybe fighting him. But if he doesn't win one more, I mean, at this point, I really maybe fight a high, like maybe a top, like a 10 or a 9. But you know, I don't see him fighting a top 5
it,
guy.
it,
And
it
mhm.
sorry to interrupt, Nico, but he almost seems to me like a Cowboy Cerrone kind of. He fights. He's another Frankie Edgar, or at least that's what it seems like he's kind of turning out to be. He's kind of that guy who's fighting those up and coming guys, and that's kind of
Yeah.
where you determine. All right, is this guy ready or not? Is he real or is he not? You know, Stevens kind of reached that ceiling. At least it seems for now. So he seems almost like he's a gatekeeper in this division for me. So like you said, he'd probably fight a lower ranked opponent and
Yeah,
a guy who's up and coming who has potential
yes,
and somebody they want to see where he's at. That'd be like an opponent for Stevens.
100%.
I definitely agree. I mean, with Stevens, like Nico said, he's 16 and 16. He's an exciting fighter, and that's honestly what's keeping him in the UFC. I mean, the loss on 249 was his fifth fight that he lost in a row. So
Wow.
I think his next fight would honestly be someone maybe higher in the ranks, but not when I mean ranks, I mean like an unranked fighter, but just one of the higher ranked ones. Just he needs a gimme fight at this point. He needs a fight where he can see himself winning, and because he needs a win. If not, he's going to be released by the UFC
Oh yeah.
in the near future if he doesn't get his shit together.
Oh yeah. In the other hand, though, I mean, Cater though. I mean, like I said, you could do anything with him right now. I mean, he's shown that he has the talent to fight anybody right now in the division. So really, I mean, I agree. Like, I mean, maybe Jair Rodriguez, and that would be a great fight. I mean, really anybody in that top 5. I don't want to see him fight Frankie Edgar just because. I mean, I don't want him to fight
Yeah,
Frankie Edgar anymore. I mean, at this point, Frankie's just there, and I mean, I just wanted to fight somebody new, you know,
yeah, 100%.
and I mean, Jair Rodriguez or Korean Zombie, I mean, that would be both fights would be amazing.
I'd
So
like I said, I believe Korean Zombie is kind of knocking on the door for a title fight right now.
Yeah. Yes.
So I think him and Cater would be perfect, a perfect matchup right now. And it would be in a very exciting fight. So that's something I could see in the near future, or at least I would like to see in the near future.
For
Yeah.
me, for Cater, it's I didn't think of Jair Rodriguez. I think that would be actually a great fight. But someone that I was thinking was Josh Emmett. Uh, he's right now
Oh, that too.
he's ranked one slot above Cater within the rankings, and he's honestly had two fights in the past year, in a sense, two bouts that have essentially not fallen through, and part of it was due to the coronavirus. Um, but I think he's kind of itching to get into the octagon at this point, and he wouldn't be opposed to kind of sign that contract for him to fight Cater at this point. And I think that fight between Cater and Emmett would be very interesting and entertaining. Uh,
Oh
and
yeah.
and the winner out of that fight would honestly be knocking on the door of the top five.
Oh yeah, 100%. If one of them wins that fight for sure, but the only thing about that fight is just, I mean, it's just Emmett. Emmett's been looking good, but I mean, I feel like I would be unfair for Cater just because if you like, he's been beating like good guys. So I mean, if you give him a guy that's ranked lower, I mean, it would be a great fight. Emmett is good, but I mean, I want to see him fight somebody better than him. Like, somebody like I want to fight. I think I want to fight him, see Jair Rodriguez, because I mean, the Korean zombie has been winning almost, I think, by knockout like his last 2 or 3 fights, and I mean, I want to see him fight somebody good. I mean, for me, is Rodriguez. I mean, him and Rodriguez would be a great fight, and then you could set up maybe like one more win, and definitely, if they the winner of that fight gets one more win, and for sure a championship. You can't deny it anymore. So he
I,
has options. He has options for
yeah,
sure.
I think regardless the route that the UFC decides to take with that division, I think a very exciting future for that featherweight division. Um, they have so much potential. The top 15 guys, it's just stacked. So regardless of the route they take, I think we're in for a lot of good future fights.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Before we move on to the next thing,
Welcome to the main event.
and now we're gonna move on to the three main fights of the night, beginning with Ngannou versus Rosenstruck. What were your thoughts on the fight, Fibo or Jovan?
Um, it's Ngannou's fucking power just on display. I mean, it wasn't really a fight. I mean, the guy could literally fight again this week if he wanted to. Um, he's 22nd knockout. Um, I mean, just Ngannou's power on display, his dominance on display. I mean, it almost seems unfair. The guy's ready for a title fight, but it almost seems like he kind of has to sit.
Yeah, I mean, he probably, if he wanted to, he didn't even have to take this fight, and he would have still deserved the title shot more than anybody. But
100%.
he wanted to fight, man. I didn't know it was that personal to him, and he was cool about it. But he said he called me out, so it had to happen. And I mean, that's like a death wish, you don't want to fight Ngannou, man. That guy is just out of this world. I mean, it's amazing. And look, the way he rushed into him wasn't even. He knows he doesn't need technique, man. He knows he just needs to land one punch and you're out. And it's just insane the way he does it. He lands. He finds a way to land. He's done it every time. He doesn't have to land clean and this time he did. So it makes it even scarier. The way it's just this guy, man. I'm telling you, look. He's been improving and improving more, and you can't really tell, but I'm sure he is. And I mean, and he went 5 rounds with Stipe, and he got beat up, but he went the 5 rounds. I mean, the guy, he's not a quitter, man. I'm telling you, man, he's scary. He's gonna fight whoever he fights, Cormier or Stipe next. I think I don't know, man. I think he's gonna win. I think he's gonna be the next champion for sure.
Bro, this fight was scary. Uh, in a sense, just I don't know why Rosenstruck asked for it, but he got what he deserved in a sense. But it was so scary that I practically missed the fight. It was that fast. I know I was watching it, and like they were announcing each fighter, and then I was talking. I looked away, looked back, and Rosenstruck was on the ground, knocked out. And then I watched the replay, and Ngannou essentially fucking murdered him in the octagon. When I watched the replay, I thought he might have died. Like,
Yeah. It,
and
Yeah.
what was even more scary too is he got after he knocked him out, he got a few more power punches in because the referee took so long to jump in. It was scary.
If the ref wasn't there, I don't think he would have ever stopped. That was the scary part about it.
yeah, he's yeah, I mean when he's in there, man, there's nothing that you can do is gonna stop him, man. You know, he's shown it. He's a monster once when he's in there. So yeah, I mean I really I mean, he needs to get the title shot at this point, you know.
Yeah,
And I mean, I get why Rosenstruck did it. You know, it was a high risk, high reward fight. You know,
yeah,
you beat Ngannou, you're undefeated. You're gonna get a title shot too.
yeah.
You're
But I
right
mean,
there.
Ngannou showed you. You know, you don't wanna call him out. You really don't wanna fight him. You know,
Yeah,
but
it's funny because for some reason those like soft-spoken fucking heavy hitters, for some reason, like when they're so soft-spoken like Ngannou, it almost makes them even more like
Scary.
scary.
Like Nico said, Ngannou's on a 4-fight win streak, and the crazy part is, each of those fights he won by knockout in less than a minute and a half within the first round, which
Yeah.
is even more scary when you think about it. Um, so like Nico said, there's no denying that he's deserving of another title shot. I know he lost to Stipe, and I'm pretty sure he's itching at getting his rematch and fighting Stipe. But Stipe has his eyes on DC right now. Um, so there's no denying that Ngannou's deserving of a fight between the winner of Stipe and Cormier.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking about it, going back and forth between my own self and like what I think should happen. I almost came to the conclusion that honestly, I wouldn't be opposed to seeing Ngannou and Cormier before I see Stephen Cormier. I mean, it almost seems unfair it almost seems unfair at this point that Ngannou hasn't gotten that opportunity again. Although, like, you know, there's no denying that Cormier is worthy of that title shot. But Ngannou's done so much. I mean, what is? You're laughing at my background.
No, I'm laughing at Nico. He was like super focused.
I was listening, bro.
But
I knew my
yeah.
face wasn't in there, so
Like I was saying,
let's relax.
it just seems like almost unfair that he's not going to get a title fight just because there is, you know, another guy who's almost just as deserving, you know, a guy who was a champion before and beat the current champion, you know, so they kind of do have some unfinished business. But I wouldn't be opposed to seeing Ngannou and Cormier before I see Steve and Cormier,
100%.
especially considering you know, Steve has a lot going on, you know, with being a first responder and obviously all the crazy shit that's going on right now. It's really important. I'd hate to see the UFC strip him for something like that because he wants to fight.
Yes.
It just
Yeah.
seems almost impossible right now. But I would love to see Cormier and Ngannou and I don't want it to be like an interim. Interim belts are stupid. There's
I
too
hate
many.
I hate him.
Too
I
many
hate
at
him.
this point.
I don't think there should be such a thing.
No, I don't. I agree. So I'd love to see you know, Cormier and Ngannou. Honestly,
Yeah, yeah. I rather. I mean, if you can't put Stipe there, I mean, you have to kind of give it to him. He wants to fight. He's obviously healthy. Cormier can fight. You know, he's healthy too. So I mean, why not? You know, I mean, at this point, you have to give him a fight. You know, I mean, I get if you're able to make the Stipe Cormier anytime in the next couple months, fine. You know, do it in 3 4 months, and then the winner of that automatically gets Ngannou. But there's always injuries, so yeah. I mean, if Stipe can make it, go ahead and make the Cormier fight.
Hey, it might be on Fighters Island. We never know.
100%.
Well, yeah,
Not only that, but just the fact that we're the uncertainty surrounding Stipe's like time frame. Like I said, Ngannou could really have a quick turnaround here. So I mean,
Yeah.
I you could see something work with him and Cormier just as soon as maybe like the end of next month. Who knows? So
Probably.
I mean, it would
Uh,
at least stop the plans of Cormier and Steep.
Yeah.
so what do you guys think would be a great opponent for Rosenstruck moving forward?
Definitely a top 5 guy. I mean, he's undefeated. He's a great striker. He's a really like he's a very very good striker. I think at this point he deserves a top guy. I mean, you can't really. He fought Ngannou. He didn't fight a guy that wasn't as good as Ngannou. But so I think he deserves a top 5 guy. I mean, doesn't matter who. Maybe Derek Lewis, maybe but anybody in the top 5.
For me, I think the perfect opponent for him would be Junior Dos Santos. Just for the simple fact that Ngannou just beat him, and Rosenstruck just lost to him, Ngannou as well. I think they're both looking to bounce back. So why not go up against each other and try to prove a point?
Yeah.
I agree. A top 5 opponent like Dos Santos would be good, or even Derek Lewis, who just went the distance with Ngannou uh, back in 2018. Or something a little outside of the box. We were just talking about another heavyweight in Hardy. Maybe give him a test like that. I mean, Hardy's had a guy in Volkov who's a high ranked opponent. So Jairzinho wouldn't be that far out of the realm of possibility. It would be a good test for Hardy, and kind of see where Jairzinho actually really measures up in that division, and we actually get to see the same with Hardy. I mean, thinking outside the box.
I think it'll be a too big of a test for Hardy. But I mean, if it happens, I wouldn't be mad. The worst thing that can happen is, well, not worst, but maybe we could see Hardy stand up with him, and then we'll actually see, think Hardy's better. But I mean, I just think it's too much of a test, especially like Hardy doesn't like to grapple, and so he's a striker, man. He might be a bad night for Hardy if he does that, but yeah.
So we're gonna move on to the bantamweight title fight between Henry Cejudo and Dominic Cruz. Uh, Nico, I know you were excited for this fight. I know I was. I'm pretty sure you were too, Fibo.
Main event.
I was excited to see Dominic Cruz return, just for the simple fact that I was sad to see him kind of go on a hiatus after losing the way he did. But it was a great matchup, especially just for me. I just figured going into the fight, Cruz's style of fighting would be hard for Cejudo to kind of overcome last minute, being that he was preparing for Aldo originally. But what are your thoughts on the fight and how it went, Nico?
Well, look, it was a good fight so far. I really really wish the ref didn't stop it when he did. Look, I get it, but well, Cejudo was showing that he is a great fighter no matter where. He's a wrestler, Olympic gold medalist, but his striking is really really good. He was landing leg shots like all the time. Like he was doing what he wanted, and that was what I was thinking though was um the first round he was very dominant, but you saw Cruz make adjustments in the second round, and it was a 5 round fight, and I just look. I thought Cejudo was gonna win before this fight, especially because Cruz didn't fight for 3 years, but at the same time, like I knew that Cruz could beat him. Cruz is probably the best bantamweight ever, and I just think look. I just think it wasn't fair. The stoppage wasn't like I said, I still think Cejudo would have won, but that stoppage, I just didn't like it, man. I don't know, man. I can't agree with that, especially in a title fight, man.
Yeah, touch on the things that Nico said. Cejudo, I don't know what it is, but from Demetrius Johnson and every opponent on, I mean, it seems like he's got a dog in him. He just seems like a different beast since then. Um, the guys just I don't know where, but it's just he seems to get so much better after every fight. It's like unimaginable. I agree with Nico in the sense of the stoppage. When I first initially saw it, I kind of I believe people were saying it was like 11, 12 unanswered shots. So like it made sense in a way, but at the same time, you see Cruz still scrambling, so you'd like to see him get that chance, especially considering he was taking a lot of unanswered shots, but he wasn't out. And
Yeah.
when you have a guy like Cruz, who was, like Nico said, probably the best at that class in bantamweight ever, you got to give him that opportunity to fight. You gotta let him fight until he's out.
Yeah. There's 2 seconds left in the round. I mean, if
Yeah.
anything, let 2 seconds go, and if you see he can't keep going, you stop it. But it's hard. Like, look, I'm never. It's hard for me sometimes to, like I always agree with the refs because they're trying to protect the fighters. But at that point, I mean, like I said, he wasn't even out. He was getting up, and the unanswered shots, like, yeah, they're an answer, but it's because he's trying to get up, and they weren't super clean. So I mean,
Yeah,
just give the guy a chance, and yeah.
100%.
Cejudo definitely, undeniably, he was impressive within the
Oh, he
victory
did
in
what he had
itself.
to.
Hmm.
I had him winning the fight, or at least leading the fight leading up to the controversial call, uh, just because he was landing a lot of leg kicks to slow Cruz down.
Yeah,
Um,
beautiful.
it was super impressive too because uh, they were super quick. And I know Cruz, his style of fighting, he's always bouncing around. So it was crazy to see how many leg kicks he was actually landing. But the stoppage was questionable. Initially, I thought it was a good call because, like Jovan said, it was like 11 unanswered shots. Uh, so it didn't really seem like he was protecting himself in a way. But just to see him get up and seem unfazed in a sense, and then watching the replay and seeing him kind of elevate as he's scrambling, it's not like he was falling down. He was trying to get back up. And like Nico said, there was 2 seconds left in the round, and it being in a title fight, you honestly you can't make that questionable call. You got to let
Hmm.
the round go. And yeah, Cejudo's corner would have been pissed that they didn't call the fight right there and then, but it would have been best for the card and the pay per view itself.
Yeah, and with that, with all that said, I don't want to take any credit away from Cejudo because he did what he
Yeah,
had to. I
I agree.
mean, that
100%.
knee was beautiful. He looked like he looked like Cruz was out, but he wasn't. I mean, he did what he had to, and it was kind of like when he beat Dillashaw. I mean, he's doing what he has to. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, he's hurting them. I mean, and like Cruz said, I mean, I should not. I mean, I shouldn't get hit. I got hit. I went down, and it happened. So, I mean, like I said, I don't want to take anything away from Cejudo. He's a monster. I
Yeah,
really wish he didn't retire, but because I think he's only 33, and there's so many good fights in that division that I would love to see next. But it is what it is. It's if he wants to retire, I understand his retirement. So, you know,
yeah. You can't really take anything from away from Cejudo. I mean, Cruz wasn't on the floor for no reason. He hit him with a good shot. That surprised Cruz. He probably, to be honest, Cruz probably blacked out when he got hit with with
oh yeah.
with that shot. Honestly, because he wasn't seeing it come his way. But Cejudo definitely was impressive within the win, regardless of the controversial call. He was winning the fight, in my opinion. Uh, but would I have liked to see the fight finish? Yes. But was it a surprise, like you said, that he retired? Yeah, I think it was a surprise to many, if not everyone. But but I honestly don't think he's going to retire. I think he the UFC is going to call his bluff and honestly offer him a good fight. And because he's not going to deny the
A
money.
lot
If
of
there's
money.
a fight that has a big bag behind
Yeah.
it, he's definitely going to be for it. I
Mhm.
think money talks, and the UFC is going to kind of call him on his bluff. I mean, there's a lot of fighters that say they retire and they come back. Just look at GSP. I know his situation was slightly different because I think health concerns, but he retired and then returned. I mean, it won't be the first time.
I'm kind of on the opposite end. I actually believe it's a genuine retirement. A lot of people were surprised, as it was I, with the retirement. But then when you hear from guys within the UFC like Dana White and Daniel Cormier, they said that Cejudo's been talking about retirement for a
Yeah.
while. So
Well,
um, when you hear that, um, it kind of shows me that it seems like it's been something that's been dwelling on him. He mentioned how he has a girl now, he wants to have a family. So I took it as genuine. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he came back. There's so many good
Yeah.
fights you could make, like Nico said. So much young talent. So I'd love for him to come back and compete because he's probably at his athletic peak. And like I said, he gets unimaginably better after every fight.
Yeah.
So
And and I
it'd be
mean,
great for him to stay.
yeah. I mean, and look, he might be a little bit of both. Maybe he wanted to retire, but at the same time, and he said it. Dana knows the price, so
Yeah.
he's gonna have to be a money fight.
Oh,
And
definitely.
there's not a lot
For
right now
sure.
in the division like big money fights. So maybe if there's a big name, he'll maybe if there's somebody that really stands out, maybe he'll come back for the right
Ma-
price. So
Yeah, maybe down the road. I mean, right now I'll take it as a genuine retirement,
yeah,
because he did seem very genuine, like Jovan was saying. But I didn't know he was talking about it for a while. But I just think money talks, and with a
oh
lot
yeah,
of these fighters that say they retire, they tend to come back for the money. So we shall see. I mean, but in regards to Cruz, who would you guys like to see him fight next?
top five has to be he has to be a top five in the bantamweight division. I mean, he lost against Cejudo, so I mean, I think, and I mean, to be honest, I mean, like I said, it was a knee, but it was controversial, so I think it has to be a top five guy. I think maybe one win against the top five and give him another title shot. I mean, why not? He's proven throughout the years to be the best. So, one loss is not gonna. I think one loss shouldn't just make he shouldn't have to start making all his way back up to the rankings. He should just fight maybe top five, and if he wins, championship again.
I'd love to see a Peter Yan, Marlon Moraes for the relinquished title. I think that'd be a really good title fight. Moraes just fought for it and or fought not he just fought for it and lost. But to a very good opponent. And I think he would definitely be deserving of another title against Peter Yan. I would love to see that unfold, as well as maybe seeing Cruz fight Jose Aldo, and then that'd give you like a nice little lane to follow.
Yeah.
With the results and following the results and seeing who you could schedule. After you get your champion, I think that'd be the route to go.
Yeah, I mean, the person I had for Cruz to fight next was Jose Aldo. I know Cejudo was
It
meant
was a good fight.
to fight Aldo at 249, and Cruz stepped in last minute. But their peaks were very similar. Like Aldo was in control of his division
Yeah.
when Cruz was the reigning as the bantamweight champion for some time. So just seeing them fight and go at it would definitely be nice. And I know we mentioned this name earlier, but I'd honestly like to see him fight Frankie Edgar maybe down the road.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just because
Mhm.
they're both coming off a loss. They both want to redeem themselves. So why not against each other? Uh,
Yeah,
I'm
actually, that's a great fight. I didn't even think about that one
Oh,
because I
I'm
mean,
definitely.
Frankie's moving down weight, so I mean, why not? I mean, two legends. I mean, yeah,
If there's any money fight in that division, it's either that fight or it's Aldo Cruz. Those are
yeah
the only real like money fights, if there are any in that division. But if we're talking most deserving, I think Peter Yan will end up being the champion of that division at some point in the near future. And I think
Sterling has
it'll
to be in the mix too.
yes
yeah
Sterling.
as well. So there's a lot of different fights you can make. But I think Peter Yan, Sterling, and Moraes are right there in the
Yeah.
top three. In terms of the future of that division for title shot.
yeah. And it's funny that you mentioned Peter Yan. I mean, I think Cejudo, if he's generally not retiring, Peter Yan would be a great fight for him, or
Oh yeah.
maybe the Aldo fight that was meant for 249. I feel like the Aldo fight would be more of a money fight than the Peter Yan fight.
Yeah.
But Peter Yan is deserving of a title shot, and I think a Cejudo Yan fight for the fans at least would be a great fight. But business wise, financially, might not be what Cejudo is looking for.
Yeah.
And that brings us to the main event of the evening. Uh, Tony Ferguson versus Justin Gaethje. Gaethje won that by KO TKO in round 5. Um, what'd you think, Nico?
I mean, look, I, I mean, I was waiting for that Khabib Ferguson fight for so long. As you guys know, I'm a huge Khabib fan. I like Ferguson. I don't like Ferguson, the way he acts, but him and Khabib are just the two best. Well, where the two best because I mean Gaethje just looked amazing. Like this was a different Gaethje that we've seen so far. Like it was like he was still aggressive. He was still really good striking. Even though he's a wrestler, his striking is amazing, and but he just showed us this time that he's able to stay composed and not get too carried away because he knows he has that power and he knows he can do that and he loves it too. But I mean, this is a scary Gaethje.
A very
I mean,
scary game.
I just he for me, I mean, now he has to be considered as like the elite of the elite, of that division. I mean, obviously he's gonna get the title shot now. So I mean, and look, I hate when people make excuses. A lot of people said that Ferguson looked, like bad, like he didn't look too good and everything. And you know what? Maybe a little bit, but you gotta give more credit to Gaethje. I mean, maybe Ferguson didn't look good because Gaethje didn't let him. I mean, I mean, Ferguson did what does all the time. He pushed forward and he put pressure. He was just getting hit too much, and look, I knew this guy wasn't human, but I mean, at some point, I mean, look, he couldn't stand that many shots. He just couldn't. It was impossible to take that many shots and not get hurt. You could tell by the last round, Ferguson, he wasn't there anymore. The fight was over pretty much, and yeah, I mean, it was amazing, really. I mean, when they announced that fight, I was so happy because I was, hey, if I don't get like a B Ferguson, at least I know I'm gonna get like an amazing fight because Gaethje, every single fight is amazing. So
Yeah, I mean, Ferguson risked it all to be a part of UFC 249. He didn't necessarily have to take it,
oh yeah,
uh, especially after Khabib backed out of it. I mean, he had nothing to gain, but he had everything to lose in a sense. I mean, coming off of a 12 fight win streak, the title fight was just inevitable in a sense. Like him, Ferguson, Khabib, the fans been waiting for that for a while. He didn't. He could have just waited for Khabib to be able to fly out of Russia and fight him. Honestly, I know leading up to the fight, I figured with everyone chopping at the bits of seeing the Khabib Ferguson fight, Gaethje would come into the fight and surprise some folks and take the long-awaited Khabib Ferguson fight off the table. I know I called Nico up before the pay-per-view and I told him, I'm like, I think Gaethje got this one, and he was like, no way, no way. Ferguson is on a 12-fight win streak. I don't see anyone beating him but Khabib. But Gaethje proved not only Nico wrong, but a lot of UFC fans that kind of underestimated him in a way. But what had me leaning in Gaethje's direction was that Gaethje was just a hard hitter. I mean, he had the wrestling background in a sense, which makes the fight between him and Khabib even more interesting leading forward because that's Khabib's strength in a sense. I mean, he's in a different stratosphere when it comes to the ground game, but his hitting power, honestly, I mean, the few losses that he's had in the UFC have been by knockout, but all his wins have been by knockout as well. So I was expecting a great fight within Ferguson. I was
right.
expecting a knockout. I didn't know if it was going to come from Ferguson or Gaethje, but I was just predicting it to be from Gaethje, and he surprised some folks. I mean, he was just trying to take off Ferguson's head the whole fight.
Yeah, being honest, I wasn't really all that surprised. I mean, this is a really dangerous Gaethje, as he is always dangerous, and him being even more disciplined this time around, because he knew every time he's gotten comfortable, it got him in a bad spot. So when you give a guy who's already so dangerous and you make him more disciplined, there's no telling what he's gonna do, and he kind of proved that. Ferguson, the only reason that fight lasted as long as it did is, like Nico said, I mean, Ferguson's almost not human. Like, he just eats shots, and it seemed like everything that Gaethje was throwing was a haymaker, and he was landing a lot of them, and it almost seemed like more than he was missing, they were landing. So that for me it seemed like the only reason that fight lasted as long as it did, but it
Oh
didn't
yeah.
seem like, other than the uppercut at the end of, I think, the second. I don't think Ferguson led that fight for even a second. um, Gaethje just dominated and showed that he belongs on that top tier. And I think I'm just as excited to see Khabib and Gaethje now as I was to see Ferguson and Khabib. And I think that he has an even better shot to dethrone Khabib than Ferguson ever did after seeing that fight.
I agree.
Agreed. I mean, you talk about the discipline, but there was a clip after the fourth round going into the fifth where his corner Gaethje was kind of feeling himself, and his corner kind of calmed him down and uh, told him like you can't get too comfortable. You need to finish this.
Yeah,
Every time you do, you kind of you get caught slipping. But Gaethje was just honestly just hitting Ferguson with the barrage of hooks and leg kicks the entire fight, and I was expecting Ferguson to drop eventually, but he just managed to kind of go the distance in a way up until the stoppage in the fifth round. I mean, all those hits that he was landing on Ferguson would have ended any other fight against any different opponent, but Ferguson just showed undeniable toughness in a way. You got to give him his credit,
Oh yeah.
especially now that we know that he suffered an injury, orbital injury, which is a facial fracture. Uh, Kind of shows his toughness even more in a way because that's definitely painful.
Yeah. I mean, he got hit a lot, so that happens when you get hit that much, that hard in the face. You know, you're gonna something's gonna break. And I mean, look, like people said, I knew already. I felt he had a better chance to beat Khabib than Ferguson just because of their styles. I mean, Ferguson's as a beast, but I think his style just it was perfect for Khabib. You know, but then now we're gonna see a completely different fighter. You know, like against Khabib. So I'm happy because to be honest, I feel like we're still gonna get that Ferguson Khabib fight eventually. But I mean, but I want to see this Gaethje fight like now. You know, I wanna see him. I wanna see him fight Khabib, and I'm a Khabib fan. I don't. I'm never gonna bet against Khabib, but if somebody has a good chance against Khabib, I think it's him. Khabib doesn't like getting hit, and I mean one good hit and Khabib will be in trouble, and he's a wrestler. You know, very good wrestler. So he'll if somebody can stop maybe Khabib in their takedowns, he's the one. And also he'll be good at scrambling probably out of them because he's a good scrambler. So you know he'll be able to get up, maybe to hold his takedowns and to hurt him, you know, standing up. So I mean he's not scared to get hit. You know, Khabib doesn't have the most power and the best striking, you know. So yeah, I think he has the best chance. So I'm excited for that fight. I can't wait. I can't wait. And they said that they're already talking about maybe making it in June or July and making it in Fight Island. So I'm just excited right now
yeah.
for all these fights that are gonna happen.
I mean, there's no denying that Gaethje deserves to fight Khabib. I know that Connor was talking shit on social media about wanting to fight Gaethje first, but that's just because he kind of wants to get to Khabib and get redemption. But I think we all can agree that Khabib is next for Gaethje. But who do you think would be
Yeah.
great for Ferguson to fight next? Because me personally, I think Ferguson should fight McGregor, and
Yes.
the winner between the Gaethje Khabib fight and the Ferguson McGregor fight should
Yes.
face off against each other. But that's just me. How about you guys?
Actually,
Um,
it's funny that you mentioned that because I literally had the same exact idea, you know. And I feel bad for Poirier, but I don't care. I don't care. I really I want to see. Look, if we get Conor Ferguson, that's a huge fight. And then you know the Khabib Gaethje fight is gonna be a huge fight. So why not? I mean, look, you get you're gonna have to. Khabib and Gaethje are gonna have to fight because of the they both have belts now, so they kind of have to, even if they wanted to make another fight. But why not make the Connor Ferguson, and then yeah, the winner of that gets the winner that gets the champions. So yeah, I mean, I think that's the best thing they could do. I mean, and you could have Porter there to hop in if somebody gets injured. But I think that's the thing to do. I mean, I thought the same exact thing.
yeah, 100%. I think the only fight to make championship wise this could be Gaethje. It's the only thing that makes sense. As much as Connor wants to put himself in that, um, it doesn't seem likely. It doesn't seem right that that fight even happens yet. Gaethje's more deserving than anybody in that division. It's the only right fight to make. I think Khabib, and Gaethje, and then when it comes to Ferguson and Connor, I think that'd be a great fight. And you'd fit Poirier in there at some point. I mean, he'd probably grab one of the losers of either or fight because he's very deserving as well. He's one of the top 5. So, like Nico said, it sucks because he's kind of hanging there, left to dry. But when you have such a good, top 5, top 10 in the division, it makes it tough. But I think at some point he will fit in there with, when we get our results from, those 2 fights.
Yeah, I agree with Jovan. I mean, I had Poirier as a dark horse opponent for Ferguson, just in case McGregor didn't really want to take that fight. But for me, the idea that I said about Ferguson Connor facing the winner of Khabib Gaethje was honestly the best idea. But in regards to Poirier, I just think that he will get an opportunity eventually. But Ferguson, he's won 12 straight wins prior to this pay-per-view, and he's never had a title fight since. So I just think he's deserving to get a chance. They can't really do him dirty and not give him an opportunity to prove himself against someone else. So I think McGregor was honestly the best bet. And if he wins against McGregor, then he'll definitely get the title shot that he's definitely been deserving.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. Well, that's all we have for you guys today. Thank you for tuning in. We appreciate you. Like and subscribe. Follow us on all platforms at BallsDeep_pod on Twitter and Instagram. On Facebook at BallsDeepPod. Nico, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, bro, it was a pleasure.
It was fun
there's
talking
gonna
to
be
you
a lot
about
of
UFC. I
there's gonna
love
be a lot of
talking to you
UFC
about
fights.
UFC.
There's gonna be UFC fights, so I'll
Thank
be
you
ready, man. I'll be ready.
Thank you, Nico, for joining us. We appreciate you coming out and giving us your analysis on everything.
Man.
And being our first guest.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
no.
man. It's exciting, man. It's exciting. I'm always down to talk about UFC or soccer, so anything else, but those are my expertise.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is the fans should be expecting you in the near future.
Oh yeah, man. I mean, hey, you kind of have to, because there's only gonna be fights right now, so I might be the only one for a while.
Well, we appreciate you coming on, and for next time, we look forward for all you guys that tuned in today or for this episode to be tuning in for future episodes.
Peace.
Deuces. Oh fuck.